this for joining us this morning for our Pamoja Corporate Philanthropy webinar. We're very delighted today to have the CEO of LUMKANI, Francois, who will be taking us through understanding LUMKANI and some of the impacts and problems they are solving within their community. I will not be the host for the webinar today, but I'm very delighted to welcome Tep, who's our CEO, who will be in conversation with Francois. And yeah, so they'll basically take the conversation forward. I think my uh, responsibility today was just to open up the space and just allow Tepo and Francois to have a conversation around the impact that Lumkani is making in different communities across the country, but in more so for us to also have a deeper understanding of Lumkani. So depending where we sit, we can see how we can all collaborate with them, partner with them, or maybe in some ways accelerate the work that they are doing in improving the livelihoods of people that need this particular product. So I'll hand over to you, Tepo, and I'm sure from here on it'll be a good session. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. Thank you. And once again, good morning to everyone. My task here is very simple, just to open up space for Francois to take over the presentation. As we know, it's a delicate time that we're in, winter time, winter season, which comes with a lot of risks and dangers, especially for our community members that live in informal settlements. So the work that Lumkani and Francois are doing centers around that. And so we'll hear more about that work today. But as we are listening, if you have any questions or would like to add any input, feel free to drop in things on the chat. And in the end as well, we'll have a moment of engagement where we can ask any questions based on the presentation or any other lingering reflections that we might have had throughout the presentation. So I'll hand over to you now, Francois, and you can take it from here. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Chapel. Really good to be here, and thanks so much for the time for everybody for joining. I'll share my screen. Is that visible and clear to everybody? Good, okay, great. And I'll tell you a little bit more about LUMKANI. And LUMKANI, first of all, my name is Francois Petousis. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of LUMKANI. Actually began many, many years ago as an undergraduate engineering thesis that I did. And yeah, we're a social enterprise based in South Africa that's specifically trying to deal with the challenge of informal settlement fires. And I can't start telling you the story of LUMKANI without telling you about Lumka, who you see on the screen here, and is one of the first people who I developed a deep connection with around this challenge of informal settlement fires. She was a community leader in UT Gardens, Khayelitsha in Cape Town, an area that back in 2013 and 14 I used to visit on a weekly basis when we were first designing our very first solution to this challenge of informal settlement fires. And after a year of going there every single week, I arrived one week, and the night before, Lumka's home had burnt down in a fire, as well as those of 12 of her neighbors. And I was left incredibly, I guess, moved by the reality of what it was to see firsthand with the person who I was close with in life, what happened when you're left with nothing but the clothing on your back after a fire. An extreme devastation that sadly is not a unique story for Lumka, but the reality for over 6,000 families in South Africa every single year. In the last decade, we're talking about 2.1 billion rands worth of informal homeowner property lost due to fires across our country. And sadly, the challenge is only getting worse. That data that we look at on a yearly basis is increasing every single year. According to the UN, 1 in 4 people globally will live in informal settlements by 2030, which is a terrifying statistic. And really speaks to the reality that as more and more people move into high-density urban informal settlements, this risk of fire, which is a very global challenge, becomes only worse. And an additional layer on top of that is the reality that in the last 45 years, extreme fire weather conditions are now 2 times more likely. And climate change is really driving that level of risk, with longer fire seasons and more extreme weather conditions driving very much of the spread of fires in communities. And in that context, LUMKANI was born. We see that as the old world, this reality of high spread, very devastating fires in our communities. And the new world we're creating is one where communities are safer and more resilient, where we are able to reduce the risks in daily life so that people have the means to keep building their lives and eventually thriving in their existence without having this challenge of fires continuously tracking people in cycles of poverty. And to do so, we developed a combination of technologies as well as other services to try and provide people access to the means to this level of resilience that we see as the right of all people anywhere in any context to be able to live a life where they're not subjected to this continuous reality. And so to tell you a little bit about our story, I mentioned earlier on that LUMKANI began through an undergraduate engineering thesis, and in our early stages with LUMKA and with other communities, we co-designed and developed a technology system to try and deal with this challenge. And there's a lot of key unique elements of what we designed, which has been very impactful from what we've done. First of all, we designed a heat detecting device that is able to create a community-wide alert as soon as a fire is sensed. And with that, we rolled that out to communities, and over years proved the ability to significantly limit the spread of fires through the intervention of this technology. And so some of the specifics behind that is we designed a system where, one, we measure temperature change as opposed to smoke. It's a very specific reality. There's too many smoky methods of cooking and heating and lighting in our communities. And so we have this reality that smoke detectors would ring too often. And with some studies and tests, they're not well suited to the environment. We measure how fast temperature is changing, uniquely designed for an informal home thermodynamic reality. I won't get too engineering on you, I promise. And then we trigger an alarm inside that house. And after that, all neighboring fire alarms within a 60-meter radius around the community ring at the same time, creating an immediate on-the-ground alert in the event of fire. At the same time, we send text messages out. So if people are at work or down the street, they know that there's a fire, and we tell them either that it's inside of their home or inside of one of their neighbors, inside of their community. And with that, we create the critical time people need, whilst a fire is still in its early stages, to respond to it before it becomes a large-scale disaster. Recently, I was speaking to a community member about a month and a half ago who was telling me the story of being at one of the local community toilets at the time when she saw an SMS come through that said there was a fire inside of her house. And she sadly had just locked her house with her 2 kids inside to quickly run to the toilet, got this message, saw this, ran back, opened her house and saw that her kids had been playing with the stove and the curtain had caught on fire inside of their house. And with that, she was able to stop a fire before any damage had occurred inside of her house, or any challenges to her kids' safety at the same time. And so those stories of the ability to create early warning is being really fundamental to our growth. Since then, we've built an organization to scale this technology to over 150,000 homes around South Africa. And we've built multiple different elements of that. One of the additional things we found that was really valuable is we also built in a layer of financial service so that people could actually insure their informal home against the risk of fire. We found that whilst large-scale funded rollouts was the key way to create community-wide safety, we also wanted to create direct access for people to be able to protect themselves. And so we built an additional model that allowed community members an affordable solution to be able to directly cover their home with technology, as well as the financial means to rebuild after a disaster. And at the moment, we really are in the growth phase, trying to take this to more and more high-risk areas around the country. There is so much more need for the over 5 million South Africans who are living in informal settlements where we have this incredible level of risk. And so our journey is one of trying to scale this up to really tackle this challenge and see that those statistics I mentioned on the first slide really come down in the level of impact on our society. Some of the things I mentioned already is about some of the statistics and the ways that we've been tracking the impact we've created. In the last 3 years, we estimate that 130 million rands worth of informal property has been saved from fire. And we do that through validating after every single fire event exactly what happened. We do call-based surveying of community members to try and find out what happened in that fire. And through those surveys, in 95% of the fire events, communities report that the LUMKANI system helped to limit the spread of fire. And as I mentioned, we now have this technology with over 500,000 people around the country, created 150 jobs for women in communities to help distribute this. And actually, given the nature of informal communities and the level of risk being faced by women, 70% of the beneficiaries of our work are actually women as well. So there's a strong gender lens that is also layered on top of the nature of household fires and the level of protection being impacted by it. A third-party study that was done a few years ago through the GSMA, funded by UK Aid, corroborated our statistics. It was a 20,000 home installation that we had done, and in 94% of fire outbreaks, the LUMKANI system helped to limit the spread of fire. Again, validating this information further. And we have years and years and years of stories. There were 2 large fires at the start of 2026 in the Western Cape that were particularly devastating. One in a community called Dunoon, where over 600 homes burnt down, another one in Masiphumelele. And these are areas that have partial coverage with some of our fire detectors in their homes. And so 2 stories that were really meaningful to me were ones that occurred last year. Where we had stories of somebody who had left a pot on the stove, gone to the shops, heard the alarms ringing in the area, people shouting their name in the streets, and they ran back and put out the fire. And in that same area where 600 homes burnt down later, where a fire detector was present, a fire was limited to only the first home being partially damaged near the stove. A second story was another person who was at work at the time. So they were not even at home, but the alarms rang in the area. They don't know, just their TV and some of the stand got burnt. But because of that alert, the community was aware of a fire in an empty house and was able to break into that house and stop the fire before it became a community-wide disaster. And these are examples, and we have years and years, and I won't spend my time digging longer into them, of stories of people being woken up, lives being saved, and serious disasters being prevented by the simple intervention of a relevantly designed technology that's been through years of design and the correct structure to have the right intervention in people's households. And we've, over the years, worked with a wide range of different partners, from corporates like Heineken and Old Mutual, Johnson Controls International, to municipalities in the form of the city of Cape Town, and also working at the moment with Stellenbosch municipality, as well as a wide range of NGOs who have been trying to deal with this challenge and supported the funding of rolling out LUMKANI's detectors into communities in order to create a large-scale impact. A recent example was a project we ran last year with the city of Cape Town. We rolled this out in June of last year. We covered 1,000 homes in one of the very high fire risk areas in Khayelitsha. And the data from the city of Cape Town's own system showed that there was a reduction from 15.4 structures lost per fire down to 2 structures lost per fire, and overall a 33% reduction in total fire events in the early phase of that project, really showing at a tangible level the impact that this technology can have in reducing losses associated with fire events. And here's some of the extent of data that we hold. We capture GPS locations, have really detailed reporting, and an ability to give very powerful impact data associated with these events. And I won't, again, go through the very detailed slides that I can share more with you if you are interested, but it covers some of the detailed data that the city provides us after having rolled out this intervention. We work with partners like Heineken across the Midvaal municipality in Gauteng. And in this project, we covered 2,100 homes across Elo and an area called Khayelitsha and Boitumelo. And we found that across the 2 years of the project, we had 396 fire events where the system alerted the community to fire. In a local news article by one of the local news providers, they found that they went out and spoke to community and found 10 stories in the first month post-installation alone of fires being prevented through the system. And so it really shows, one, the frequency of devastation occurring in communities, one that I think we often are unaware of, these small-scale continuous disasters that are happening, but also the powerful ability for the right solution to impact this. And again, more and more stories similar to the ones I told you before that came out and that Heineken was able to share within their networks of the difference that they made in the communities very related to where their factories and facilities were operating, which was part of their connection to this. And so whilst we've had significant scale in rolling out these solutions in different regions around the country, there's a need for a lot more. And so I guess I come to you today with giving this context of LUMKANI and the impact we've created through technology, but at the same time wanting to discuss the opportunity to fund valuable impact in communities. At a cost of between 600 to 800 Rand per home, organizations can directly invest in a local innovation that can make a massive difference in a real risk faced by our communities. Through this, we can provide really detailed reporting on the impact being created so that you have measurable metrics across human impact, economic impact, and the reality of household value being protected through this intervention. At the same time, we have really high quality media that we produce for our partners to show the level of impact. We create short form Netflix quality mini documentaries that can be shared both internally or externally around the work we do, so that we can really create awareness of the value being created through the investment being made in the level of impact in communities. And so today I just want to communicate again a thank you to all of you for the time and listening to the story of LUMKANI and the work that we do, and the way in which we create impactful interventions for organizations to really create safety and resilience in the risky reality that sadly a lot of South Africans are being faced with every single day, and giving direct access to the right solutions for these communities. And through that, we hope to limit the cycles of poverty so that people can really begin to thrive and grow rather than being trapped in that reality. So yeah, thank you so much for your time again, and appreciate the awareness and context.
Thank you, Francois. Can I just quickly come in and just ask you to please admit the people that are on the waiting? If you go as participants, there might be some people on your side that are. Do you see any?
Yes, there
Okay.
are a couple of people who joined. Oh, Shane, you changed me to the host.
Yeah, it's okay.
We'll share the webinar with them so that they can also.
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much for the time and sharing our information. And we can obviously share the recording with anybody who's just joined, as well as
For sure.
the presentation that we shared, so that people have full context of the work that LUMKANI is doing to try and create safer and more resilient communities in our country.
For sure. Thank you so much, Francois. Thank you to your team as well for the incredible work that you all are doing in literally saving lives of thousands of people, and as well as the possessions that could potentially be lost in those situations. Welcome to anyone who might be just joining us. This is a recorded session, so for anything that you've missed, please look out on our social media, because we'll be able to share there where you can find the full presentation that Francois just gave. Just as a question, Francois, I recognize that this is a highly complex issue to address, right? In terms of, we're not just looking at the immediate response to disasters, but there are underlying issues there. As you mentioned, I think you touched on climate change as another layer of issue that exacerbates this problem. There is a high housing crisis, which is what puts people in these kinds of situations to begin with. There's not enough sustainable housing for people, which is probably also fueled by the unemployment crisis. So we can cut these up and see different layers that contribute to this complex issue. Where have you found that there's intersection in that in some of the collaborations that you're having with your partners, where maybe some climate change organizations are coming in to support, or housing support, or is that still a gap that you assess could still be an opportunity for LUMKANI to further collaborations?
Definitely, and a lot of our recent engagement, I think, because of the nature to which we've had such extreme fire weather related incidences, where small fires have become mass disasters in regions around the country. The consciousness around the way in which climate change is intersecting with this reality of fire is becoming more and more conscious. And I think it's a global reality we're seeing in wildfires, as well as in urban settings, where the reality of extreme fire weather conditions is creating this increased frequency. I mentioned some of the research and data that's occurring around the world on this overlap of challenges. And with that, we've been working with different organizations. Both the UCT's Climate Action Group has been working with us a lot to understand the data and dynamics. We have 150,000 sensors understanding the temperature realities inside of informal homes around South Africa, which has been a very powerful source of information to be able to understand the way in which, over time, the risk being faced by communities is actually getting worse. And if you overlay the realities of incredible density of informal homes, the highly flammable materials that are in community, you have this intersectional challenge where a small spark of an everyday scenario can turn into such a large-scale disaster due to factors beyond the control of people living in communities. And I think that's really why we believe that structural interventions, such as providing early warning solutions that can give people the means to respond to that disaster before it becomes a large-scale one, is really fundamental to be able to be able to limit this reality. That it's very hard to do so without that level of community-wide intervention.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. In the meantime, Francois, I'd also ask, if possible, just walk us through some of the challenges that you all face in this work. I'm pretty sure there's many, right? Because there's no straightforward solutions. If you could just talk us through some of the themes that keep coming up as you are working that work against your mission and the progress that you are and the aspirations that you're seeking to make.
For sure. And I think that as an organization working in the context of social innovation in informal communities, you're always coming up with this fundamental thing of how do you build awareness and understanding around a new complex solution like LUMKANI has developed to provide this level of impact. And so we spent years working on our education tools, the way that we work with communities to build the levels of understanding and engagement to use our technology in the right ways. Which has been really a really powerful level of work that we've done over the years to do consumer-based education. We do it directly in an installation process through our agents. We hire local women in communities to roll out and distribute our technology, and they do direct education, but then we also do community-wide work. We do video and other forms of interaction to ensure that people understand how to leverage the technology best. The one thing I will say, though, is that when I first started doing this work, I really thought that one of the challenges we would have to get into was supporting the disaster response element of this, and how do people actually respond after a fire. And what we found is that community members, sadly, due to years of repetitively having to face this challenge, communities actually have really good solutions to dealing with fires. The challenge is, you find out about it too late, those mechanisms become less and less effective. Once a fire is in 2, 3, 4, 5 homes, your tools that communities have to deal with that fire become less and less effective. And so really what we found is that by intervening early and giving people that awareness of fire, a lot of the tools that people were already using, the buckets of sand and water, the bucket brigades moving through communities, the blankets being thrown over, like all of those solutions, when it is just a stove or a curtain, becomes much more plausible to be effective. And that's really been one of the key things we've discovered along the journey as we kind of explore this. The other place I would just touch on from a challenge perspective is, obviously, as you do this type of work, you're dealing with the challenge of scale. The reality is that urban formal settlements are constantly growing, they're constantly changing, they're constantly becoming bigger, because people are trying to find places to live and work close to opportunities within cities all over our country. And that's just going to continue to expand. That stat I mentioned from the UN of how much urban informal people living in urban informal settlements is going to grow, reaching 1 in 4 people by 2030, is just such a sign globally of what is occurring. And so as you create that continuous density, it means that you have more and more of a need to fund the type of solutions that will have this level of impact. And so obviously one of the standard challenges that you face in this work is that you're just trying to find the right partners who understand and can see the value associated with this critical need in our country to create safety.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely one of the most startling facts that you mentioned, that the fact that there's a growing problem where a quarter of the world's population will have to be dealing with it. So we're talking about something that's continually getting worse instead of being alleviated, which I think points to a deeper systemic issues. I think with this, I'll segue into the question in the chat here, which asks about what opportunities for impact to be seen within the local governments. Is there any support that is coming from there, and where could there be opportunities for more collaboration with them and partnership?
So yeah, I mentioned a couple of examples in our presentation, but I think that what we've proven with the local government, we worked with the city of Cape Town, we worked with the Midvaal municipality in partnership with Heineken in Gauteng, and we're currently developing a project with Stellenbosch municipality to try and introduce our solutions, our technology into the highest risk communities. And the reality is that municipalities face the impact of these solutions, of this challenge most. The reality is that when there are fires in communities, there is direct damage to municipal resources, and afterwards, often, even though there is limited funds at times to provide relief for the municipalities, inevitably get involved in the support cycle, be it from a disaster risk management, fire services, and the costs associated with that, as well as the post-disaster relief that's necessary to be able to give people a means to rebuild their lives, and the kind of social challenges that arise through the cycles of poverty created by fires. And so I think municipalities are acutely aware of this challenge and have been looking for a long time for the right types of solutions that can actually tangibly, through a proven data-driven mechanism, create a reduction in these scenarios. And so LUMKANI's been working in different contexts. I mentioned on our slide deck one of our recent projects with the City of Cape Town and the great work that we've done there. We've even done work in foreign contexts. We received funding to do this work in Kenya previously. And the Kenyan Red Cross, who are the local emergency services there, received every single fire alert that came from our system and would then go and directly respond. And they saw great results within our project of being able to directly respond to fire through having GPS locations of exactly where a fire starts, as well as confirmations from local residents as soon as a fire occurs. So that combination, I think, is really powerful, and we found the right mechanisms now working with local municipalities to be able to introduce this solution through funded mechanisms, through human settlements departments, as well as partnering with disaster risk management, as well as working with other corporate actors to partner through across the dynamic of municipality related funds, as well as through corporate funds, to work together to really extend the scale of impact, like the example I gave you in Midvaal with Heineken.
Right. We have just under 10 minutes left. So there's a question in the chat here about which areas you're focused in Johannesburg.
So we've worked over a period of time in a few different key areas. We worked in the Midvaal municipality quite extensively, which I mentioned. We've worked in Zandspruit quite a lot. We worked in for quite a few years in an area called Mbele, as well as in Kaya Sands previously. And then just beyond, I guess, the boundaries of Johannesburg, we've also worked a lot in Pretoria, in Mamelodi as kind of one of our major focus areas. There we've settled very high fire risk communities in Pretoria that have been very affected by fire. We've also worked in the East Rand and elsewhere at different levels of scale, depending on the partners we've received and where there's either interest or whether there's like areas where we have specifically data on the highest fire risk regions. So we've got a fairly widespread level of work, and that's across two different models as well. I mentioned the direct funded model, which has come through a lot of the projects I just spoke about, but also we've worked directly through hiring local agents to be able to provide the solution directly to communities as well, where people can fund this for themselves. Obviously, we know that when we do that type of work, there's a reality that not everybody can afford to pay, even though it is a very affordable rate, to cover themselves against these risks. But it at least gives people access to that opportunity to do so. And we found a high level of engagement and take up across different regions in Johannesburg.
Yeah. Great. I wonder if there's, I don't want to leave anyone out if there's one.
I have a question.
Sure.
Two questions. So first one, which areas in Cape Town are you focused in? And also, how do you get the word out there? Because I mean, I'm from Nyanga, and I've seen your product in like people's houses, but not a lot of people are aware of it. And I've only seen like marketing on like shop like paintings and stuff. But like, how do you get the word out there to more people? And do you do the installation individually, or do you want to do it in batches, in like a certain community you want to install like in a batch or something? I don't know if you get my question.
So in the kind of like Cape Town area, we're in almost every major informal settlement across the city to a certain level. And obviously, as a smaller organization, you're always playing the game of resources to try and create the highest level of impact. When we work with the city, the recently funded project that I mentioned, they specifically came to us with these are the highest fire risk areas that they want to work in. And so, we obviously provide direct resources. That was an SST Khayelitsha, as well as a project that they wanted to run in Dunoon in Cape Town, obviously, with the major fires we mentioned before. We worked a lot extensively in Masiphumelele. We ran a project funded by FNB in partnership with an organization called Islamic Relief South Africa to roll out the Masiphumelele last year as well. And we did quite a bit of work as well in Kayamandi, again through a partnership between Heineken and Stellenbosch municipality on that side to try and create a lot of awareness around that. But I think your question about awareness is really important. And we've, again, you're playing this juggle between limited resources and a wide range of challenge. We try to create a lot of awareness around this directly. We run events in communities, and we kind of on a cycling basis will go to community leadership, try to get community members together and run large-scale events. We run small-scale tea parties. Some of our agents who work in communities will invite other women into their homes, talk about the work that's being done in the space. We also have social media and other forms of engagement. We have a really large financial education and consumer education program on fire safety, as well as ways in which people can protect themselves. So we try to leverage a wide range of different sources so people have awareness about this. But as you said, you're living in Younger, and there's only so many people who are aware of our work, even though it's an ongoing challenge in Younger. And so yeah, it's one of those things where what we're trying to do at the moment is really just increase scale and reach more regions through our work. I'm not sure if I answered all of your questions.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Cool, perfect. Clayton, you can go.
Cool. Morning, Francois. Just so obviously corporate partnerships is a major aspect of the business, and to receive funding. Beyond them providing funding, what other kind of assistance do they provide in terms of maybe growing or expanding the business?
So we've had a couple of different relationships with different corporate partners. One is that, one thing is, as part of these things, certain corporates have very close relationships in communities. And so we work very closely with them, where leveraging that relationship has been a very powerful way to get started in certain areas, and certain other community corporates lack relationships, and we've got an engine that can kind of build those and leverage that. And then post that, we found different forms of relief partnership as well. LUMKANI runs a project called Izandla, where we work with different corporates directly after disasters. Obviously, wherever we can support this challenge of fire at different scales, we really believe that the proactive mechanism of reducing risk is far more powerful than relief. At the same time, when people go through disaster, we've worked with corporates to distribute funds. We've distributed blankets and food supplies and kids' uniforms and basic needs directly after fires into thousands of homes across the Western Cape, and Gauteng predominantly is the areas that we're currently working in. We've got a project at the moment coming up in KZN and Durban, where we've done some work previously there as well. So yeah, I guess our narrative with different corporates is they open different doors. Sometimes it's about a partnership. A different partnership we developed with a corporate allowed us to create discounts at local grocery stores and other sources for people who took up LUMKANI offerings, in order to make it more affordable to pay for the self-funded version that communities can fund for themselves. And so there's a wide range of different solutions across relief, direct funding of technology, as well as kind of partnerships where corporates have value that they can provide to communities. For example, one of our partners had already had supplies of gas that they can provide for cooking, to do soup kitchens and relief. So it's a wide range of different ways in which we can partner with corporates, and we're really here to be creative and innovative around how we can leverage the benefits of those corporates partners to try and create maximum scale and access wherever they have the means to do so, at the same time as being able to kind of run standalone projects entirely by ourselves to create direct impact and without needing to leverage those sorts of internal resources, depending on what I guess the opportunities are that live there with different partners.
Cool. Thank you so much. I realize our time is going to run out and we're going to be kicked out of this meeting. Thank you so much for this insightful presentation, Francois, and this really rich engagement that we've had. Please look out for LUMKANI on social media, on LinkedIn. Francois, if there's any other way that people can reach you, feel free to share your email or any contact information on the chat as well. But once again, this is a recorded session, so we'll be sharing this for those who have missed the session or any parts of the presentation. But once again, thank you for everyone else as well, for the participants who are here, for taking time out of your day to engage with us on this important issue. And we hope that this will spark further collaboration, further partnership in resolving or alleviating a very dire situation or dire problem that is worldwide at this point.